That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we've been talking about this for I don't know how long now. It seems like everybody in the Dynasty community is also in agreement. This 2023 draft class is special. I mean, if you didn't listen to us at the very beginning of the offseason, if you did not go out there and trade for those picks, then I'm sorry, you got no shot trading for them in May. The ship has sailed. The train has left the station. If anybody's coming out telling you to trade for 2023 picks now, what are you doing? Where were you 6 months ago? So I know that a ton of members of the flock are stacked up with those 2023 draft picks. I'm going to do my best to outline the running back position for everybody here because I know there's a significant amount of excitement, especially around the top 5 running backs. Now, we are going to give some honorable mentions for some names that I think should at least be brought up. But before we get into it, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to get into a fantasy football draft at any time, any day, any part of the year, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. There are constantly drafts filling up in the public lobby like every 5 minutes. You can get into drafts with me on the live stream. You can go get drafts in with your friends. Most importantly, have some fun. And also, when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. On top of that, you'll get our 2022 rookie rankings, our 2022 rookie draft guide, and you will get our dynasty rankings to go along with that. So please take advantage of that offer. Support this channel. I think that should be it. Let's go through and let's dive into these honorable mentions. We are going to go from the bottom to the top here with these rankings, and we are going to start it off with Zach Charbonnet. Now, this is a running back that was supposed to come out this past year. So that's going to be the first red flag you're seeing with this profile, that he went back to UCLA to stay his 4th season. Now, I will say, and I've heard a lot of people, a part of the flock community, reach out to me and ask this exact question. And how are we adjusting our future analysis with college football now paying these players? Because you're going to see a very strong argument to be had that a lot of these guys, not necessarily on this list, but in future videos, are going to be staying that 4th year just because if their college is willing to pay them $3 million to stay, and all of a sudden they can take that $3 million to the bank guaranteed, and on top of that, potentially increase their draft stock. Why wouldn't you stay in college? I mean, I most likely would, but that's not necessarily the case with Zach Charbonnet, unless UCLA is paying him a ridiculous amount of money. I have no idea about. I doubt that's what's happening. He's not necessarily one of the best running backs in the country. He did have almost 17 carries a game this past season, and he was a capable pass catching running back. This is why I think he should be on the list, because not only did he handle the volume in the rushing game, but at the same time, he had 9.3% of his team's college target share, hovering right around 2 receptions a game. So overall, I don't want to say he's a jag running back, but he's a capable pass catcher. We'll stay all 4 years. We have to see improvement out of every running back on this list. He is definitely the least exciting. He is 100% the least exciting. I really just wanted to bring him up because this was someone we were talking about at the beginning of this offseason. If we were talking about him at the beginning of this offseason, he should at least be mentioned as an honorable mention. Right now, NFL mock drafts have him getting some capital. I don't know how reliant that actually is now. So let's go over to our next honorable mention. And this is the one guy I could see sneaking into the top 5 because he's about to be stepping into a much larger role in his offense. It's going to be Devonta Chain. Now, this is a player that was running alongside Isaiah Spiller. Y'all know after we had the NFL Combine, I mean, that changes everything for the running backs. And all of a sudden, we were looking at Isaiah Spiller as a running back that I was not touching in the first round of Dynasty rookie drafts and ends up falling to day 3. But before then, Isaiah Spiller, we were looking at him 1-for-1 with Breece Hall. If you were just looking at his receiving game capabilities, and remember, people in the NFL mock draft community thought Isaiah Spiller was going round 1. Now, if you look at Devonta Chain, this is a running back that was significantly better at Texas A&M. This was a 4-star prospect. On top of this, this is a running back known for his speed. That's the name of the game here. Speed, speed, speed with Devonta Chain. Now, I will say maybe he looks a little small. I don't necessarily know. I really want to see the workload that he's going to have this upcoming season. One issue with looking at running backs in Devy is if you go to the size of these players, as we learned with Isaiah Spiller, as you've learned time and time again, these schools have no incentive to actually get those players in, get them lined up against the wall, get their height, weigh them on a regular basis. You have no idea how big these players are. The best you can do is look at their workloads. The best you can do is actually pull up. I hate to say this. Trust me, I hate to say it. The best you can do is pull up the film and go squint, say, okay, is he big? I don't necessarily know if we're going to be able to say that until we get to the NFL Combine. What I can say is, in 2020, we did not get much his true freshman season because Isaiah Spiller was there. Keep that in mind. But he had 43 carries, 8.5 yards per carry. By far and away, the most efficient running back on the team. Now, of course, with 43 carries, that is such a small sample, a tiny, tiny sample that you can't extrapolate that. You can't say, okay, well, if he gets a full workload, he's still going to be the most efficient running back at Texas A&M. Well, in 2021, he almost led this team in rushing yards per game. He almost led this team in yards from scrimmage. Now, you would assume that maybe he split the backfield exactly 50-50 with Isaiah Spiller. No, Isaiah Spiller almost had 15 carries a game where Devonta Chain was hovering around 10 or 11. But the difference is the efficiency on a per touch basis. Isaiah Spiller was in there and had 5.6 yards per carry compared to Devonta Chain, who had 7.0. That's a massive difference. Now, I will say, maybe you want to make the argument about the sample size, but once you put these two seasons together from a Chain, that all of a sudden we can kind of see that trend here. We can see that he's consistently doing more on a per touch basis than Isaiah Spiller. This translates over to the receiving game as well, where if you're looking at Isaiah Spiller, he had 7.6 yards per reception compared to Devonta Chain at 10.9. And there was volume here. He averaged 2 receptions a game with Isaiah Spiller in this same offense. So if you're looking at the fact that Isaiah Spiller was an older running back, Isaiah Spiller before the NFL Combine was a player that a ton of mock drafters had going at the beginning of round 2 in the NFL draft. And Devonta Chain clearly outplayed him in that same offense, in that same situation at a younger age. It's pretty exciting. I mean, this is a running back that I want to say would be right there, probably as running back 2, running back 3 in this year's draft class. And he's not top 5 on this list. He's not top 5. Now, I think I could make an argument for him to be top 5 over someone like our next guy. But I mean, I sent out a tweet essentially just asking everyone who their top 5 running backs were. And if you go to any website ever and you look up Devy rankings, you are going to have Sean Tucker ahead. I don't necessarily understand it, but I can't come out here and just say we are so much more efficient than the rest of the community that we are going to be pushing Devonta Chain ahead of him. I think there's a chance for Chain to go ahead of Sean Tucker this upcoming season, though. But as of now, this was a track star. Now, only a 3-star prospect going to Syracuse, but since he's gotten to Syracuse, he's been fantastic. This is a running back that had over 15 carries. 15 carries right away his true freshman season on a per game basis. Now, wasn't really used as a receiver, didn't average a reception a game, but what did we need to see going into his sophomore season? We wanted to see a bump up with his receiving down role, and that happened. I mean, here you're going to see that he bumped up to 20.5 carries a game, almost 2 receptions a game at the same time, 9.41% of his team's college target share. As a sophomore, that's fantastic. I mean, that's music to your ears if you're getting that from a sophomore. We like seeing that from a junior, and running backs very unique in that you consistently see running backs be able to go and handle that first and second down workload and be able to be utilized as an early down player right away when they're freshmen and when they're sophomores. But a lot of these guys don't develop their passing game skill set until their junior season. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is a good example of this. Of course, nobody outside of our number 1 player on this list is Jonathan Taylor, but still, he also was efficient. He averaged over 6 yards per carry, where the team average was at 5.3. I will say, with no Isaiah Spiller at Texas A&M, I think there's a chance that Sean Tucker does fall outside this top 5 come next season, and maybe I'm underrating him because of his high school pedigree. Please let me know what I'm missing here. Let me know why the entire community seems to be in consensus that Sean Tucker is a player you need to be valuing over Devonta Chain, when I think it's a lot closer. Maybe it's Devonta Chain is smaller. But let's go over to our next player, and the best thing you're going to see with this profile, 100% what makes him an intriguing running back, at least at a glance, is his name, Tank Bixby. I wish my parents had the foresight. I wish my parents had the intelligence to name me something like Tank. Can you imagine? Okay, let's move on. That 4-star prospect goes to Auburn. This is a running back that went out there and was hyper efficient his true freshman season. He goes out, doesn't even hit 14 carries a game, barely has a reception a game, and averages over 91 total yards a game. Off of no workload whatsoever. He has 6 yards per carry. Now, the offense is very bad. This is what's funny about it, is he was hyper efficient in a very bad situation where the rest of the offense had 4.6 yards per carry. Now, of course, very similar to what we just got done talking about with Sean Tucker, this is a running back that, what did we need to see? We needed to see the involvement improve as a receiving option. Now, that did happen, not to the extent that we had with Sean Tucker, where going into his second season, he gets the volume bump up. He has 17 carries a game and 1.6 receptions. That's good for 6.4% of his team's college target share. Now, what you like to see, this is a player very similar to Sean Tucker. They're going to profile as 3-down guys. I think that's most likely why people are going to have Devonta Chain outside of this and have Sean Tucker, have Tank Bixby up here in the top 5, just because their frames, just because you're pretty confident that Bixby could handle that 3-down workload. What we want to see this upcoming season is we want to see that college target share get over 10%, which it's very easy to see that. As I've already said, I mean, these sophomore running backs, very rarely are they going out there and getting involved as a receiver right away. We'll get to someone at the end that has managed to do that. But let's go to our next player. Let's go over to Zach Evans, former 5-star prospect, went to TCU, has dealt with some injuries, but this is a player that's going to be transferring to Ole Miss. Okay, so this is important. Remember, Snoop Connor is gone. He just went to the NFL draft this past season. And I will say, I know I've said this story a ton, so people probably aren't too interested in hearing it again, but back my junior year at the University of Texas, I was in a biomedical statistics course. And of course, people were taking our thesis, our final project, whatever you want to call it, very seriously. People going out there doing research on vaccines, people going out there and doing real world research. What I brought that last day of the semester is I brought a study on high school pedigree and high school recruit rank, predicting fantasy football success at running back, at wide receiver, at quarterback, at tight end. And I will say, didn't get a good grade as you would imagine, but I did learn something. And I learned that at the running back position in particular, those 5-star prospects, they usually hit in college. They usually hit in the NFL. It's very much to do about the athleticism of running back being there at the very beginning, and athleticism mattering so much more at the running back position than it's going to matter at quarterback, than it's going to matter at wide receiver. But you like to see that he was the second running back in this recruiting class, only behind Bijan Robinson. And this is a player that went in 2020, really did not have a large workload at TCU. He only had 6 carries a game, about 1 reception a game, but hell, the efficiency off the charts. 7.7 yards per carry, 5.3 was the team average there at TCU. Going into 2021, he does take that step forward, 15.5 carries a game, and you continue to see the efficiency, 7 yards per carry, and 5 was the team average. So Zach Evans, I know not a lot of people are going to have the tiers separated as I do, but I think once you get to this 3rd ranking, that's when you get the tier up. I think that Tank Bixby and Sean Tucker for me are going to be a tier below these top 3 players. I love to see the pedigree he had coming out of high school, and more importantly, the efficiency that he showed at TCU in a very bad situation. Going over to Ole Miss, hopefully it's better. Obviously, the competition is going to be a lot tougher in the SEC, but that's kind of what you want from your running backs. You want your running backs getting used to that SEC competition. That way, when they get to the NFL, it's not too much of a surprise. Now let's go over to a player that's also transferring over to the SEC. Let's get to a player that people are consistently comparing to Mr. Alvin Kamara, Mr. DeAndre Swift. Is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, if you look at Gibbs, of course, you're not necessarily going to see the volume pop off the page because it's not what you have with a Kamara, not even in college. It's not what you had with DeAndre Swift in college. This is a former 4-star prospect that went to Georgia Tech and immediately was one of the best receiving running backs in the country at 18 years old. Let that sink in. He was one of the best receiving running backs immediately at 18 years old in the country. He is the best pass catching running back in this draft class. So he only had about 12.5 carries per game, but 3.5 receptions a game, over 15% of his team's college target share. That is unheard of. That is ridiculous for a running back at 18 years old. Yeah, he was at Georgia Tech. It's not Alabama, but we are about to see it at Alabama. And what I really am excited about is if you look at this Alabama offense, we can just assume that players coming out of Alabama, historically speaking, they get the NFL draft capital. Right now, people are projecting Jahmyr Gibbs to potentially be a round 1 NFL draft pick. Hell, that's very exciting. And on top of it, this is a team that's losing a decent amount of receiver talent. This is a team that has Bryce Young at quarterback, so we know they're going to be one of the most productive offenses in the NFL. And on top of this, you're missing out on Jamison Williams. You're missing out on John Mechie. And with those 2 wide receivers going to the NFL, there are targets available. I would not be surprised if Jahmyr Gibbs goes and averages over 15% of Alabama's team college target share, which is literally something that Alvin Kamara would do. That's something that DeAndre Swift would hopefully do. I don't even know if he would be able to get there. Very excited about Jahmyr Gibbs, specifically in PPR formats. Non-PPR, not as excited, but still, regardless, you have to be looking at him. And now going over to the number 1 running back. Yes, I said I went to the University of Texas. Yes, I know we are very biased in this. Bijan Robinson, best running back in the country. Hopefully. Texas is looking better. I'm moving back to Austin, so hopefully I get to go actually see him in person, depending on how much we're working this football season. But he was the number 1 running back in the nation coming out of high school. He was a 5-star prospect. He gets to Texas in 2020 immediately at 18 years old. Listen to this. 18 years old, he leads the room in carries. He's the number 1 running back in that offense. 8.2 yards per carry. 8.2. Now, yes, the Big 12, horrible defenses, yada, yada, yada. Texas is a bad football team. I went there for 4 years. I am about to hopefully be seeing a couple of games this upcoming season. We are not good, despite what JN is probably telling you in the comment section right now. For him to go out in a poor offensive environment and to display this level of efficiency is bonkers. And on top of this, he was involved as a receiver right away. He goes out there and he has 6.76% of his team's college target share. Now, what's also funny is, a lot of people are excited about Keontae Ingram. Keontae Ingram, who had to transfer over to USC. Keontae Ingram, who's now with the Arizona Cardinals. Keontae Ingram this season, 4.7 yards per carry. Bijan Robinson almost doubled the man at 18 years old. Going to his sophomore year is what you need to see. Used as a bell cow. He goes and averages 19.5 carries a game, 112 rushing yards a game in the Texas Longhorn offense, 2.6 receptions a game, almost 30 receiving yards per game in the Texas offense. He has over 11% of this team's college target share. Let me repeat this. 142 total yards per game, 1.5 touchdowns per game, and you know that he is that bell cow player. 22 touches a game. He's going to most likely be a top 10 draft pick in the NFL draft this upcoming season if he's able to stay healthy. He will light the NFL Combine on fire. He's probably the best running back prospect. I want to say probably a better running back prospect than Jonathan Taylor. Not saying he's going to be a better running back in the NFL than Jonathan Taylor, but if you compare him to Jonathan Taylor, Taylor did not get to this level of involvement as a receiver. Not even his true junior season. I mean, you already have Robinson there as a sophomore. Add on the efficiency, add on that I'm assuming that the NFL Combine numbers are going to be comparable. It's exciting. He's one of the reasons why so many people are going after those 2023 draft picks. I mean, if you're just recapping some of these players that we've talked about, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I want to say that he is probably one of the best wide receiver prospects that we have seen in the last 10 years. I mean, he's right there with someone like Jamar Chase. We can say the same thing here. I mean, I don't want to say Robinson's right there with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley will forever be in his own tier, but he's probably the second guy behind that. Probably a better prospect than Zeke, a better prospect than Leonard Fournette. a better prospect than Breece Hall, of course. You add on a couple of these quarterbacks. You add on CJ Stroud, had almost 400 passing yards per game last year and will have rushing upside. You add on Bryce Young to the mix. There's a reason everybody's going after these picks. I'm sorry if you're too late for it. I wish I could go back in time, tell you to subscribe to our channel 6 months ago, trade for him then, but honestly, then it was a little bit too late as well. The Dynasty community has been on this class for a very long time. And I think that's all I got for y'all. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I really hope you got something from it. Please go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, and have a great day.